A very good morning to one and all present here. With immense pleasure, I, Pallavi M. Parmar, Adhyapak Sahayak from Anand College of Legal Studies. A very warm welcome to Dr. Rekha Kumari Singh Ma'am, in charge Dean Faculty of Law, Sardar Patel University, and in charge Principal of Anand College of Legal Studies. Distinguished guest speaker, Advocate Sabrina Bath Ma'am, and all my dear students, welcome all of you in today's webinar under the topic of 12th 5-year plan for Janjati area, which is organized by Anand Law College and Anand College of Legal Studies. Is associated with Think India Trouble Right Forum. Any event or session is start with the prayer to Almighty of God. So I would request to Komal Arora ma'am for prayer. Komal Arora ma'am.
Thank you, Pallavi ma'am. वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्य कोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा. Thank you, Pallavi.
Thank you, Komal ma'am. Now I would like to invite Mr. Gururaj Devarubli, Associate Professor from Anand College of Legal Studies, to give a warm welcome to all and introduce to our honorable guest speaker, Dr. Sabrina Bath ma'am.
Thank you, Pallavi ma'am. Today's expert, Advocate Sabrina Bath, she giving a brief introduction about her. She has completed LLB from Symbiosis Law School, Pune, in the year 2020, and she has completed LLM in the specialization of Constitutional and Administrative Law, and she has areas of interest like legal research, academics, litigation, and arbitration. She completed the bar examination in March 2021, and she has done internships with various organizations and think tanks, litigation internships at various lower and high courts and law firms, and currently she is associated with currently she is associated with currently she is a member of think tank Tribal Rights Forum and member of Project Eklavya, and today she is speaking with 5-year plan for Janjati areas. We welcome you, ma'am, on the virtual platform. The session is yours.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Okay, now I would like to request is our esteemed guest, Advocate Sabrina Bath ma'am, to start the session. Over to you, ma'am. Sabrina ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just share my screen. Just let me know if it's visible. Is the screen visible for everyone?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am, it is visible.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. So as I've already been introduced, so today's session would be about the 12th 5-year plan for Janjati areas. So to give you a brief introduction, Janjati areas is basically a term used for the tribal areas. Okay, basically the areas that are occupied by the tribal communities of India. And the main key focus of the session today would be what were the initiatives that were taken under the 12th 5-year plan for the betterment of these areas. Okay, so before I begin the session, I would want the session to be a bit interactive. So I just have a few questions for the audience. That is, what do you mean by when you hear the word tribes? What comes to your mind? आप जब tribes सुनते हैं तो आपको सबसे पहले what do you understand by the word tribe? If anyone could just give me an answer, otherwise I'll have to मुझे ऐसे किसी को pick up करना पड़ेगा. So just give me everyone just on your own initiative, just give me an answer. What do you understand by the term tribes?
Those lives in the forest and hilly areas.
Okay, and are you like any one of you is aware of any tribal communities of India, या फिर any area of India where the tribal communities are present, like in any state? किसी को कुछ पता है?
Assam, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so you guys have a fair idea. So I'll start the session. Before starting the session, I will give you a brief introduction. What do you mean by the term tribes? And another thing is, what do you mean by 5-year plans? Because these are the two main terms that we'll be dealing with in the entire session. So what is tribe? Tribal people, tribes, tribal communities is a common term that is used to describe people which have their own culture, their own language, their own customs, and their own institutions. So basically, the tribal communities in India are present in specific areas, okay, and they have their own culture. Like for someone from North India, example from Punjab, will have their own culture, they will have their own language. ऐसे ही someone from Uttar Pradesh will have their own language, their own culture, their own practices and customs that they practice. Similarly, tribal population, the tribes also have their own cultures, their own languages and customs. And these 3-4 things differentiate from the normal population of India. Okay, so tribal communities are very popular, and there are around 370 million people who fall under tribal communities, and they're found in more than 70 countries worldwide. Okay, and in India, tribal population can be found in most of the regions like Jharkhand, upper northeast areas, northeast hilly areas like Meghalaya, Manipur, Nagaland, and as someone said, Assam. So these areas, even in Chhattisgarh, you will find some tribal communities, okay? And India, for the legal recognition, legally they are recognized under Article 342 of the Indian Constitution. So this is a brief idea about what do you mean by tribes. Now coming to what are 5-year plans. So 5-year plans are basically, they are the centralized and integrated national economic programs. National economic programs that were framed by the Indian government. The main aim of the same were the growth, the modernization, and self-reliance of the population. The first 5-year plan in India was launched back in 1951, and since 1951, India has had around 12 5-year plans. The 12th 5-year plan was the last of the 5-year plans, as the new government under Prime Minister Modi had announced that they are going to dissolve Planning Commission, which was mainly responsible for framing the 5-year plans. So they were dissolving the Planning Commission. Hence, the 5-year plans also came to an end, and it was replaced by a think tank called the Niti Aayog, which is basically the National Institution for Transforming India. Now, tribal development through 5-year plans. So the 5-year plans have had a lot of initiatives for developing the tribal areas, the scheduled tribes and communities. And the main areas, the key focus areas of these plans were to develop them socially, educationally, economically, politically, and culturally. And for the same, a lot of models and a lot of different approaches and theories were also framed under these 5-year plans. Some of the approaches and models that have been adopted under these plans include the community development programs, the multi-purpose tribal blocks, then the tribal sub-plans. All this I'll be discussing further in the session. So the key focus area of the 5-year plans, and especially the 12th 5-year plan, I would say, was to raise the productivity levels in terms of agriculture, forestry, and small-scale industries for these communities, rehabilitation of the bonded labor, and education and training programs. Now coming on to the 12th 5-year plan. So the 12th 5-year plan was functional from the duration of 2012 to 2017. The main aim of the plan was for a faster, more inclusive and a sustainable growth. So what do I mean by a faster, more inclusive and a sustainable growth is the main aim of the plan was that whatever initiatives that we will be taking for the tribal communities and the tribal population, the initiatives should be such that are more inclusive. What do I mean when I say more inclusive? Initiatives should be such that while we are making a plan or while we are propounding a model under the plan, we have to have an inclusion or participation from the tribal communities itself. Because अगर आप किसी community के लिए you're framing something, so उस community के लोगों को when you involve in that process, you come to know what are the main problems that they're facing. Okay, on ground analysis you can do, on ground research you can do, ki on ground practical problems, what are the communities are facing. You get a note of those problems, and once you get a note of those problems, only after that will you frame a theory or a model under the plan that aims at overcoming those problems. So before framing a solution for anything, the main focus of the plan was before we frame a solution to the problems of the tribal communities, it is important that we involve the members of the tribal communities and understand what are their problems so that we can frame more efficient solutions for them. And what do I mean when I say sustainable growth? Sustainable growth, the main aim of this plan was that the issue of environment sustainability should not be ignored, and we need a growth process that is consistent with protecting our environment. And when I say sustainability, I mean that what all initiatives that we are taking, those present day initiatives should not take a toll on the future generations. Like अभी हमने कुछ किया environment में, like now to build a school for the tribal areas, we are cutting down some part of the forest. Okay, abhi ke liye to we've made a school and the tribal population will get educated, but we have to keep in mind कि अभी cutting a part of the forest, उसका future में क्या effect होगा. Future में obviously it is going to have environmental issues also, and also future generation की जो capacity है उसको हम उस पे we have to make sure that it is not taking a toll on the same. And the thing was the perpetuation of social-economic backwardness amongst the scheduled tribes. But we've also seen that 12th five-year plan was framed. They did introduce some models, some schemes to overcome the problems of the tribal population. But it was also observed that there was a shortcoming in the plan, that was that the existing socio-economic backwardness did not allow the plan to be fully successful. Okay, so how is the development of the scheduled tribes and communities happening through the tribal through the 5-year plans is so once we know that the tribal population is basically remotely located. So even if you go in Jharkhand, you will for example, if you go in Northeast, for example, if I take the example of Khasi tribe, the Khasi tribe in Northeast ka capital is Shillong. Okay, we say that वहाँ पर सब Khasi people are living. That is not the on-ground reality. The Khasi people in Meghalaya are living way beyond Shillong. So Shillong is the state capital. So state capital है, वहाँ पर सब कुछ है. You have schools, hospitals, everything is available. But the place, the Khasi people are living in the upper hill areas. Upper hill areas in the areas which are far away from Shillong. So the people who are staying in the upper hills, वहाँ पर उनको schools, hospitals वगैरह की facilities are not available. So this thing is called as remoteness of location. Remoteness of location, like main areas like Shillong or Umroi, these main cities जो हैं Meghalaya में, वहाँ पर this population is not living. This population is living far from these areas. So one of the main issues that tribal populations face is remoteness of location. And another main issues are that a poor implementation of the existing schemes. We say that हमने schemes बना दी, 5-year plans के under scheme बना दी, government ने कुछ laws रख दिए, like for example we have a forest act, then we have other laws for land alienation. हमने laws बना दिए, but only having laws does not suffice. It has been observed that laws तो बन गए, laws बनने के बाद we say okay अब तो law है तो problems will end, but that is not happening. The proper implementation of the laws is not happening, the proper implementation of the schemes is not happening, because of which the tribal population continues to face issues. Then geographical seclusion I've discussed, then decline in the literacy levels, then critical dropout rate, widen gaps between literacy and health indicators. All these factors I will be discussing in detail now. So the key focus areas of the 12th 5-year plan. The 12th 5-year plan, as I said, was basically 12th 5-year plan made the focus of the plan was for the upgradation of the Janjati or the tribal areas. And for that, the plan key focus areas were divided into these focus areas, that is education, health, entrepreneurship, atrocities on the scheduled tribes, geographical exclusion, protection of tribal women, research, information and mass education, tribal festivals and others. Now, coming to the first area, that is education. As we know, in the present times, we all say that it is very important to be educated. Why do we say that education is important? One, education will raise your awareness, will raise your understanding of the things that are happening around you. ठीक है? अब अगर एक population का part है, एक general population का part है, that is your tribal population. And अगर उस that population is not properly educated only, तो अगर वो properly educated नहीं है, उनको नहीं पता होगा कि उनकी जो problems हैं, they will think that we have these problems, but they will not know that there are solutions to these problems. To understand the solutions to the problem, it is important that they're educated. They know how these problems can be redressed. So, in spite of various development projects and opportunities for the economic advancement of the tribal people, it has been observed that very little benefit was actually accrued to the tribals. Matlab, we did have education plans for them, but on ground reality, the actual benefit that the tribal population had was very limited. Why? Because one of the problem was language barriers. Okay, so the tribal population, as I said, अब अगर suppose tribal population को आप side पर रख दो, अब अगर आप normal यूपी या फिर महाराष्ट्र का example ले लो, यूपी में they are speaking Hindi, महाराष्ट्र में they are speaking Marathi. Okay, for someone who does not understand Hindi, उसको आप अब कोई महाराष्ट्र में है, उसको हिंदी समझ नहीं आती है, बट आप उधर वहां पर जाके आप उनको हिंदी में पढ़ा रहे हो. आपने तो कह दिया कि you've taught them, you say that you've done your job, but what? आपने पढ़ा दिया, but the thing is, क्या जिसको आपने पढ़ाया उसको समझ आया, उसको समझ नहीं आया, because there was a language barrier, because that person could only understand in Marathi. So similarly for the tribal population, they have their own language, so there's a language barrier. You're educating them, but you have to make sure that you're educating them in their own language. And if you want to educate them, for example, in Hindi or English, you have to make sure that first you're teaching them Hindi, first you're teaching them English, so that आगे जो आप उनको समझाओ, they can understand it. Then another focus of the plan was the focus on elementary education, on pre-matric elementary education पे कैसे, by providing pre-matric scholarship provide की, it becomes easier for the students to, like, financially also it becomes easier for the students to study. So these initiatives were taken. Then another key focus area was vocational training areas for women's training and establishment of polytechnics, etc. So vocational training, sirf, teaching them languages or maths, science was not the only focus. They also said that they should also be provided vocational training. And then scheme for hostels for the girls and boys. So another key focus area of the plan was like after we are developing schools for the education of the tribal population boys and girls, it was also kept in mind that we'll also provide them hostel opportunities so that it becomes easier for the students that they can stay there and they can study there at the same time. Then another thing that came up was Rajiv Gandhi National Fellowship Scheme. That was again a scheme iske under they were going to provide scholarship to the students for higher education. Then iske saath saath there were also other scholarships that were introduced like National Overseas Scholarship Scheme, then scholarship scheme for institutes of excellence and top class institutes. Basic aim was scholarship ka was so that the tribal population ka higher education is taken care of and also they are provided financial support. Then health. Health is, as we know, in the present pandemic, health is the main thing. That health is the main concern. If you're not healthy, you cannot do anything. So tribal areas hai, we know that mostly the tribal areas are mostly located in the forest areas which are remotely located. So wahan par health facilities were not properly available. So for example, abhi jaise corona pandemic hai, pehle pandemic tha, obviously if you were getting the symptoms, अब अगर वहाँ पे हॉस्पिटल्स नहीं है, so where will the people go and get themselves tested? Where will they go and isolate? ये सब चीजें हो सकती हैं प्रॉब्लम्स. अब फॉर एग्जांपल वैक्सीन, अगर वहाँ पे हॉस्पिटल्स नहीं है, हेल्थ फैसिलिटीज नहीं है, हाउ विल द पीपल गेट वैक्सीनेटेड? ये तो आपको मैं मॉडर्न टाइम एग्जांपल दे रही हूँ, बट ऐसे ही इश्यूज फॉर हेल्थ इश्यूज द 12th 5-year plan focused कि the tribal affairs ministry will start operating a scheme of granting aid to voluntary organizations like NGOs and all that are working for the welfare of the scheduled tribes, and they will provide them for running 10 or more bedded hospitals and mobile dispensaries in tribal areas. So the main focus was कि hospitals बनाए जाएंगे, ठीक है, ये जो voluntary organizations है उनको हम financial support देंगे so that they can set up hospitals which have 10 beds minimum, और mobile dispensaries like in a car, जैसा आप देखते हो ट्रक्स में खाने के लिए घूमते हैं आजकल, वैसे ही ट्रक्स में dispensaries होंगी, mobile dispensaries होंगी that will move about in the tribal areas. And they also said that there will be public-private partnership so that the health programs, especially for primary healthcare centers, can be speeded up. Again, the key areas were to ensure that there was necessary extension work and facilities for preventive medical care, then combining the tribal medicine and other medicinal systems. This is important because now we know that the tribals have their own culture, they have their own language. Similarly, tribals also have their own ways in which वो वहाँ पर जैसे they are living in forest, वहाँ पर जो locally available herbs हैं, plants हैं, उनसे they are making medicine. So then another focus area of this plan was to combine the tribal medicine with the modern medicine. Okay, and then another thing that they focused was on preventing the problem of malnutrition by providing for Anganwadi centers, then providing for safe drinking water supply sources and sanitation facilities. And how could this be done? This could be done by training the panchayat members and the communities to handle the situations of epidemics. Like, उनको training देनी है, suppose panchayat members को, कि suppose अभी जैसे कोविड का पैंडेमिक हो गया है, तो पैंडेमिक में how will you approach, how will you ensure, how will you test people, how will you ensure their isolation, all of that, उसमें training देना. Immunization and regular IEC programs. Then another area of focus was entrepreneurship. So the plan also aimed at developing entrepreneurship amongst young tribals. It was observed that the tribal population, obviously, if they're not educated only, they obviously don't have any business skills. So first was to educate them, then also to develop entrepreneurship skills in them, basically business skills in them. Entrepreneurship and business skills develop करने से the good that was going to come out of it was that they could was basically to encourage the setting up of small and large scale businesses by the tribal population. And the tribal population, they have their own arts and handicrafts. So the main aim was to promote their handicrafts by making funds available to them so that they could export their arts, handicraft that they were locally practicing. Then there was another scheme that was started, that was Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So the main aim of the scheme was to prevent distress, migration and trafficking. So basically, what happens in tribal areas is, what is happening is, वहाँ पर people are going, like big companies are going, they're basically clearing the forest area, saying that we want to set up our industry here, okay. Although there's Land Alienation Act, there's Forest Act, जहाँ पर बोला जाता है कि बाहर से the third party cannot come into the tribal area and set up their own industry. But again, the laws are not being properly implemented, because of which it has been observed that third parties like business corporations are coming in the forest areas and they are clearing the forest area. So once you're clearing the forest areas, you're basically, jo tribal population is heavily dependent upon the forest areas for their survival. So basically, you're taking away their mode of survival, and unka ghar aap unse basically you're taking it away. So because of which, when the forest cover is cleared, they basically become homeless, because of which they have to migrate. And then the problem of distressed migration arises, and also it has been observed that the tribal population where the young girls and women are being trafficked, they are being sexually exploited. So to overcome these problems, the Manrega scheme was started, and it was said that under this scheme, effective monitoring and social audits and the review of the schemes and audits has to be ensured, and also has to be ensured that the women are getting their cards of employment. Then it aimed at higher participation of the tribal population, and all by incorporating various schemes, and also removing the limit of providing maximum 100 days employment to a household in a given financial year. Then I've been talking about forest land ka cover hat jata hai. What is it? Land. So land is very important for the tribal population. Land is basically their main source of livelihood. It's the main source of survival. It is their home basically. वो वहां पर रहते हैं, they practice their occupation there, so land से उनको खाना मिलता है, their medicine, everything. So land is very important for the tribal populations, and but it has been observed that there has been violation of laws, okay, and the laws are not being properly implemented. So the 12th 5-year plan aimed at overcoming these problems by setting up a proper nodal agency, then ensuring जो मनरेगा scheme के जो main key areas हैं, they have been properly implemented, and then directing the efforts towards the and then ensuring that the agriculturally unexploited tribal areas की so on the land, there is a part of the land where the tribals would be practicing agriculture. Agriculture is the main occupation. So when I said that once the third parties like the big corporations are coming and they are taking away the forest land, so the agriculture also suffers. So the main focus of this plan was to ensure that all this does not happen, and then setting up separate areas for agriculture, marking them as agriculture zones, and saying कि यहाँ पर आके no third party can interfere, इस land पे सिर्फ tribals का हक है, only they will practice agriculture, and उनसे agriculture से after selling the crops वगैरह जो भी profits होंगे, only the tribals have, that will be made available only to the tribal population. Then another thing was to establish a crash program for providing land to the landless tribals. So again, there's some tribals, it was observed that some tribals were also landless. So under the 12th five-year plan, initiatives were taken to mark out certain portions of the land for these landless tribals so that they could practice their occupation there and they could settle there. Then then we observed that there are a lot of atrocities on the STs. And atrocities, why are these atrocities taking place? They're taking place because there's no effective implementation of the available legal provisions, and then there is no adequate grievance redressal mechanism. To overcome the same, a district level committee comprising of credible NGOs and advocates and other stakeholders was set up. Then I feel someone's mic is on. Can you please turn it off? There's a bit of disturbance that's coming. Okay. Coming back, so atrocities on STs was basically they had problems. So जो STs की जो problems है, they were not catered to because जो existing laws हैं, they are not being properly implemented, और जो redressal mechanisms हैं, they're also not being adequately functioning. So the main focus of the plan was to ensure that the laws are properly implemented and these redressal mechanisms are adequately made available to all. And for this, a district level committee, which would have the NGOs and advocates and other stakeholders, was set up. Then protection of tribal women. So out of the tribal population, tribal women have a very important role to play. Why? Because tribal women are actively involved in agriculture, which is the main source of occupation for the tribal population. Okay, and also tribal women are actively involved in tribal arts and handicrafts. Okay, which is again a main source of livelihood for the tribal population. First, for that. It had been earlier observed that tribal women suffered double disadvantage and and within their household disparities. So to address this problem, schemes like vocational training was set up. Then it was said that at least 2 polytechnics should be established. Then a system of public distribution should be modified appropriately, where local cereals along with pulses and oils in adequate quantity should be ensured to all tribal families. Then uske baad it was said that Anganwadi centers should be, jo Anganwadi centers that had been set up, they should be managed by tribal women alone. And then there should be a convergence between the central and the state government schemes for the scheduled tribes. And then state agriculture universities should be deployed to promote dissemination of such practices to the scheduled tribe women. And then again, there should be mapping of jobs in the public sector companies. Mapping of jobs means कि अब जो पब्लिक सेक्टर कंपनीज हैं उनकी जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज में आप ऐसी जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज ढूंढो और ट्राइबल वुमेन को बताओ कि इस जॉब के लिए आप अप्लाई कर सकते हो so that they can apply for the same. Then research, information, mass education and tribal festivals. So we know that tribals have their own culture, so obviously they're going to have their own festivals. So the objective of this ongoing scheme was to promote tribal culture, their capacity building and awareness generation, and also to monitor and evaluate the various welfare and development programs implemented by the tribal ministry. And another thing that the scheme was to cater to the needs of information and knowledge for the policy makers. So when I said, so 12th five-year plan ke under, they were also basically making policies for the upgradation of the tribal areas. So how can that happen is that suppose मैं 12th five-year plan में involved थी, so अब मेरे को automatically तो I will not get knowledge ना कि वहाँ पर tribal areas में क्या क्या problems हो रही हैं. So under this research, information and mass education scheme, the main aim was कि for policy makers like me, for researchers and policy makers like me, we should be provided information and knowledge so that we can come up with adequate solutions and policies for the problems of the tribal communities. Then I've discussed human geographical exclusion and human resource management. So we know that tribal areas suffer from geographical exclusion, which basically has an impact on their availability of social and physical infrastructure and the quality of services. Okay, so we say because they're geographically excluded, so although they have schools, hospitals, and other social service amenities for them, but because of the geographical exclusion, the actual benefit that they can get out of these schemes um, it has an effect on the actual benefit. So for that, measures were taken from time to time to incentivize these services and then identify suitable individuals from tribal areas where services were deficient and sponsor them for courses and specialities that were required and recruit them on successful completion of these courses, then decentralize the delivery of basic services to the community and the Gram Sabhas. And it was said that should be ensured that the Gram Sabhas should be legally and operationally empowered to conduct social audit of tribal development programs. Then another main thing that came in the 12th five-year plan was the tribal sub-plan. Tribal sub-plan ka main aim was again the development of the tribal areas, and on one hand, the aim was to invest in the tribal areas, and on the other hand, the aim was that through this investment, there should be an all-round development of the tribal communities in accordance with their needs. So it had two main objectives. That was one, the socio-economic development of the scheduled tribes and communities, and secondly, the protection of tribals against exploitation by realizing these objectives. Okay. So basically, these were the main things, the key focus areas of the 12th five-year plan. To summarize, I would say the 12th five-year plan ka main objective was to go do an on-ground research and understand the problems of the tribal areas. After understanding the problems in areas of understanding the problems, provide for solutions in form of policies. And the 12th five-year plan ke key areas were divided, as I have already discussed. The key areas were education, health, entrepreneurship, upliftment of tribal women, all these areas. Okay. So to conclude, I would say that after looking at all the initiatives that have been suggested for in the 12th five-year plan, it can be said that the plan aimed at the overall social and economic development of the tribal communities and to bridge their development with the rest of the with the rest of the country. What I mean by saying this is कि जो rest of the country में normal population के लिए जो development strategies adopt की जा रही हैं, they should become parallel. The tribal population के लिए जो strategies are being adopted, they should be parallel to the strategies that are being adopted for the development of the rest of the country, so that the tribal population comes at the same level with the general population of India. Okay, so before I end the session, I would want all the participants, I would want them to know that we at Tribal Rights Forum Think India basically aim at raising awareness for the tribal communities in India, to understand the issues of the tribal communities and to understand how the issues are being addressed. And you can join. You have various opportunities to join Tribal Rights Forums Think India through internships and various other opportunities. And for that, you can visit our social media handles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Okay, so this marks the end of my session. Any doubts, please let me know. Yes, ma'am.
कोई क्वेश्चन है? Any student? किसी को कोई क्वेश्चन है? Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am, how much it is actually effective? Like it's a 12th plan, 11th plan, whether any major changes are there in tribal areas, how it is effective?
The 12th plan was effective because through that a lot of initiatives have been set up. So abhi, because the time was limited I could not tell you the exact initiatives, but the 12th plan, I will tell you in just how the 12th plan was successful. 12th plan ke under, if you go to tribal areas in Jharkhand, वहाँ पर you will observe there were a lot of schools and medical facilities that were actually being set up. पहले थी ये facilities, but वो when I said they were away from the tribals, but अभी under the 12th year plan के initiatives के under, जहाँ पर tribal population was living, उस area में ही these initiatives were being implemented. So, but again, on ground reality of the initiatives that are being taken, it varies from area to area also, because the main problem that we in India as a country face is not only about tribal, not only if I exclude tribal areas also, in general also, you're all law students. You know this, that we have laws, okay, but what we see, what we observe is the proper implementation of the laws and the schemes is not taking place. So 12th 5-year plan ka main focus was to ensure that the proper implementation is taking place, and the 12th 5-year plan, I will not say it was completely successful, but it was greatly successful to an extent, because under this plan, the tribal art and handicraft ke liye a lot of good schemes were implemented. Just say the tribals have actually profited a lot. Okay. Any other questions?
किसी स्टूडेंट्स को क्वेश्चन है अभी? Everyone? Okay. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable word. The informations provided by you are very much helpful to our students. Now, I would like to invite Miss Anjana Solanki, ma'am, Adhyapak Sahayak at Anand College of Legal Study, to propose vote of thanks.
Thank you, Pallavi ma'am. It is indeed my great pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. On behalf of Anand Law College and Anand College of Legal Studies, managed by Sri Ramakrishna Seva Mandal, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to Advocate Sabrina Bath ma'am by showing virtual gratitude certificate. Thank you so much ma'am for providing such valuable knowledge on the topic of 12th 5-year plan for Janjati areas. I would like to thank Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar sir, Principal of Anand Law College, and Dr. Rekha Kumari Singh ma'am, In charge Dean, Faculty of Law, Sardar Patel University, and In charge Principal of Anand College of Legal Studies, for always motivating and inspiring us for organizing this type of webinar. Thank you so much, Dr. Amit Kumar Parmar sir and Dr. Rekha Kumari Singh ma'am. I would like to thank Ms. Pallavi Parmar ma'am for coordinating this event successful. I would like to thank all the teaching and non-teaching staff of Anand Law College and Anand College of Legal Studies for directly and indirectly support for this event. I would like to thank all the students for attending this session. Thank you so much everyone, and once again I also thank to Advocate Sabrina Bath ma'am. Thank you so much ma'am.
Thank you everyone for sparing your time. And if the organizing, if Pallavi ma'am, if the students are interested in being a part of the Tribal Rights Forum, Think India Tribal Rights Forum, I can you can get in touch with me and I can share with you the Google forms through which the students can apply for internships and other means of being involved with Think India, if the students are interested.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you very much, Sabrina Bath, ma'am. Thank you, valuable time to provide. Thank you very much. It is my humble request to all the dignitary to kindly leave the webinar.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
मैम सर्टिफिकेट कब मिलेंगे?
आप फीडबैक फॉर्म फिल कर दीजिए. Within 10 to 15 days you will receive the certificates.
Thank you, Ananya ma'am. Thank you very much.